If a sophisticated hacker wants to steal a Fortune 500 company's proprietary trade secrets, right? Or maybe their impending merger document.
Yeah, the really high-value targets.
Exactly. They don't even bother attacking the corporation's multi-million-dollar firewall anymore. I mean, that is just a complete waste of time and resources for them.
Oh, absolutely. It's too sortified.
Right. So instead, they target the inbox of a junior associate at the corporation's outside law firm. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are looking directly at you. Whether you are a managing partner auditing your firm's risk, a legal tech enthusiast, or maybe an IT professional tasked with securing the unsecurable.
Which is quite the job these days.
It really is. And our mission today is to tear into a highly critical article. This was published on May 26, 2026 by Charles Odendahl, and it's titled Fortifying Legal Ethics with Microsoft Defender for Law Firms.
It's a fantastic piece of writing.
It is. And the core premise Odendahl presents is just uncompromising. Basically, the legal sector has become the primer backdoor for global cybercrime.
Yeah, the front door is locked, so they go around the back.
Right. We're looking at a landscape where attackers are deploying highly automated AI-driven phishing campaigns. And these are engineered specifically to steal sensitive litigation files and client personally identifiable information.
Which is a goldmine for attackers.
Totally. And look, just right up front, if you're listening to this and realizing your firm is staring down these exact vulnerabilities right now, it is really worth noting that Mormax.net specializes in the complex implementation of the exact solutions we are about to tear into.
They definitely know what they're doing.
Yeah, they can help. Okay, but let's unpack this because Odendahl isn't just writing another white paper about IT headaches. He is arguing that the line between digital security and legal ethics has completely dissolved.
Completely. And you know, the dissolution of that line is really the defining crisis for modern practice management right now.
I mean, how do we even get here?
Well, historically, the legal industry treated cybersecurity as this decentralized, purely operational issue.
Like it was just the IT guy's problem.
Exactly. If a workstation was compromised, you just quarantined it, called an IT contractor to run a remediation scan, and, you know, the partners went right back to billing hours.
Nothing to see here, right?
Right. But Odendahl's article forcefully dismantles that mindset. He points out that relying on traditional, signature-based antivirus software, even the default consumer iterations of Windows Defender, is basically negligent in the current threat landscape.
Negligent. Wow. That's a strong word for just using the default software.
It is, but it's accurate.
Yeah.
We aren't dealing with static malware signatures anymore. We are dealing with polymorphic generative threats.
Things that constantly change shape.
Yes. Because of that, the American Bar Association has actually had to formally codify the intersection of digital risk and professional responsibility.
Yeah, and Odendahl anchors his argument on two specific ABA mandates, Rule 1.1 and Rule 1.6.
Right. So Model Rule 1.1 demands technical competence, basically meaning that ignorance of how data flows or how it is compromised is no longer an acceptable defense for an attorney. You can't just say, I'm not a computer person anymore.
Exactly. You can't plead ignorance. And then there's Rule 1.6, which mandates reasonable efforts to protect client data.
What's fascinating here is how the ABA's definition of reasonable has been forced to evolve right alongside the technology.
Because what was reasonable 5 years ago is definitely not reasonable today.
Not at all. Odendahl highlights that a seemingly mundane operational error can instantaneously breach the foundational bedrock of the profession.
You mean attorney-client privilege?
Yes. Think about the daily workflow of, say, a litigation paralegal or a junior associate. They are processing hundreds of inbound communications every single day.
Right, they're just flying through their inbox.
Exactly. So an attacker utilizes an AI model to scrape the firm's vendor relationships from public filings or maybe some compromised email chains.
Oh, so they know exactly who the firm works with.
Yes. Then the AI generates a flawlessly spoofed invoice from a known litigation support vendor.
That is terrifying.
It is. The moment that paralegal clicks the payload, it isn't just a compromised workstation anymore. It is a catastrophic, reportable, ethical breach.
I love the analogy you can make here. It is literally the digital equivalent of an attorney trying to protect physical client files. Right. But instead of locking them in a bank vault, they just store them in a wet cardboard box on a park bench.
Yeah, just out in the open.
And hoping nobody checks. I mean, you would be disbarred for that in the physical world.
Without a doubt.
But the concept of reasonable efforts is notoriously slippery, right? Right. So wait, how does a law firm actually prove to an ethics board or, say, a furious corporate client that they were being technically competent after a breach occurs?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because you can't just stand in front of a disciplinary committee and say, well, we ran a virus scan last Tuesday.
No, they will not accept that. You prove it through immutable telemetry and infrastructure tiering.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, the source outlines that maintaining compliance really requires upgrading to professional, enterprise-grade environments.
So not the stuff you buy off the shelf at a big box store.
Exactly. Specifically, Odendahl points to Microsoft 365 Business Premium, which integrates Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 or Plan 2.
Okay, the professional tiers.
Right. What he stresses is that utilizing these tiers fundamentally alters the firm's defensive posture from reactive to proactive.
So it's actively looking for trouble.
Yes. And more importantly for the ABA, the system generates a cryptographic, meticulously documented audit trail.
Ah, so there's proof.
Exactly. It logs the exact vector of every blocked threat, the heuristics of every quarantine file, and the real-time neutralization of malicious infrastructure.
So when the cyber insurance carrier comes knocking or that corporate client demands a full audit of your security protocols, you aren't just offering them a vague assurance.
No, you don't just say, we're secure.
Right, you're handing them a verified data log. You're producing a literal receipt of your defense mechanisms in action.
And that data log acts as your legal shield. Odendahl makes a very definitive statement here. He says deploying advanced telemetry and automated threat hunting isn't just an IT budget line item anymore.
It's way bigger than that.
It is a fiduciary act of care. It is the empirical evidence that the firm actually fulfilled its obligations under Rule 1.6.
Man, that really shifts the entire paradigm. The burden of proof moves from subjective intent to completely objective data.
Exactly.
Well, let's look under the hood of how this telemetry actually works. Like, how is this system functioning as a digital sentry to neutralize these threats before the user even has a chance to make a catastrophic error?
It's really clever. The article dissects two critical real-time preventative mechanisms deployed at the perimeter. They're called safe attachments and safe links.
Okay, well, let's start with safe attachments.
Sure. With safe attachments, the architecture fundamentally changes how inbound data is processed. When an email carrying a payload hits the Exchange server, Defender doesn't just scan the binary against a list of known bad files.
Because those lists are always out of date anyway.
Right. Instead, it intercepts the file and routes it into a hypervisor-isolated detonation chamber.
So it's like a sandbox.
Exactly like a sandbox.
It forces the file to reveal its true intentions before it ever touches the firm's actual working environment.
Precisely. In that isolated environment, the system executes the file and monitors its behavioral heuristics. It analyzes the API calls.
Like, what is it trying to do?
Right. It asks, does this seemingly harmless PDF suddenly attempt to execute a PowerShell script?
Which a PDF should never do.
Exactly. Or does it try to modify registry keys or establish a clandestine connection to a known command and control server in Eastern Europe?
Wow.
If the behavioral analysis flags the file as malicious, the payload is destroyed at the server level. The associate never even sees it in their inbox.
Here's where it gets really interesting because the depth of that analysis is incredible, but I have to look at the practical reality of a high-volume litigation firm.
Sure, it's a fast-paced environment.
Exactly. If you are a litigator handling a massive multi-district litigation, you are receiving thousands of PDFs, evidentiary files, and opposing counsel communications every single week.
Constant data flow.
Right. So if the Exchange server is physically intercepting every single attachment, booting up a virtual machine, detonating the file, analyzing the API calls, and then deciding whether to deliver it, doesn't routing everything through a virtual bomb squad grind the firm's productivity to an absolute halt?
That is always the primary pushback from managing partners when implementing these systems.
I bet.
But Odendahl explains how the architecture solves for that friction. The detonation and analysis happen asynchronously, and they leverage dynamic delivery.
Asynchronously. What does that look like for the user?
It means Defender can instantly deliver the body of the email to the associate so they can read the message immediately.
Okay, so the email arrives normally.
Right, but a placeholder attachment sits there for the few seconds it takes the hypervisor to complete the behavioral analysis.
Oh, wow.
The latency is marginal, often completely imperceptible, and it ensures productivity doesn't stall while the firm still maintains an air-gapped perimeter.
That makes total sense. You get the context of the communication immediately, but the actual data payload is essentially held in escrow until it clears customs.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But attackers know this, right? They know attachments are being detonated in a bomb squad bunker, which is why Odendahl points out they've pivoted heavily to malicious links instead.
They absolutely have, and they are utilizing highly ephemeral infrastructure to do it. The source details the massive threat of zero-day phishing links.
Ephemeral infrastructure meaning it's here today, gone tomorrow.
Gone in minutes, actually. An attacker spins up a fraudulent credential harvesting page that flawlessly mimics a Microsoft OneDrive document share, or maybe an official state court e-filing portal.
Something lawyers click on every day.
Exactly. But that specific URL might only exist for 20 minutes.
Wait, 20 minutes?
Yeah. By the time traditional security vendors identify the malicious URL and update their global block lists, the campaign is already over. The infrastructure is burned, and the attackers already have the passwords.
So static block lists are completely useless against a target that disappears in minutes.
Utterly useless.
How does safe links solve the ephemeral URL problem then?
Through aggressive time-of-click protection.
Time of click.
Yeah. When an email contains a URL, Defender actively rewrites the link. When the attorney clicks that link, their browser doesn't go straight to the destination.
Where does it go?
It is instantly routed through Microsoft's Global Threat Intelligence Graph. Defender analyzes the destination's intent in real time, checking for anomalous redirects, obfuscated code, or newly registered domains exhibiting malicious characteristics.
All in the milliseconds after they click.
Right. And if the analysis determines the site is a credential harvester, Defender intercepts the browser request and throws up a massive, unbypassable warning screen.
It forces a micro-interruption right at the point of failure. So even if the email bypassed the initial filters because the URL was literally registered 3 seconds before the email was sent, the system protects the user at the exact millisecond they attempt to interact with the threat.
It's an incredibly robust safety net.
But look, let's escalate this scenario a bit. Safe links and safe attachments are incredible perimeter defenses.
The best on the market.
But perimeter defense assumes the threat originates outside the building. What happens when an associate logs into the firm's network from an unsecured airport Wi-Fi network?
Which happens all the time.
Or maybe they plug in a compromised USB drive they found at a conference. The threat is already inside.
That brings us to Odendahl's analysis of EDR, endpoint detection and response.
EDR.
Yes. The transition from perimeter defense to endpoint security is totally non-negotiable in modern architecture. Modern cyber insurance carriers actively scan for EDR deployment during the underwriting process.
They won't even write the policy without it.
No, a lack of EDR is often grounds for immediate denial of coverage, because EDR fundamentally assumes that the perimeter has already been breached.
So it's like having an internal security guard.
Yeah.
Instead of just checking IDs at the lobby, they are constantly monitoring the behavior of everyone already inside the building.
Exactly. They are watching to see if anyone suddenly starts acting suspiciously. EDR relies on continuous, high-fidelity behavioral monitoring of every single node connected to the firm's infrastructure.
Every laptop, mobile device, and server.
Every single one. It isn't just scanning for files, it is analyzing telemetry. Defender for Endpoint ingests millions of data points about process executions, memory injections, and lateral movement across the network.
Odendahl uses a very specific scenario in the text to illustrate this, doesn't he?
He does. He describes a situation where an associate's laptop suddenly initiates a rapid encryption sequence across a massive volume of files at 3:00 a.m.
Which is not normal.
Right, which is the classic behavioral fingerprint of a ransomware detonation. The local payload is attempting to encrypt the local drive and then traverse the network to lock the firm's shared repositories.
So it's spreading.
Yes. But when EDR detects that specific heuristic, the rapid, unauthorized modification of file headers, it does not wait for a human analyst to approve a response protocol.
It just acts.
It executes autonomous containment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the EDR system is dynamically rewriting the local firewall rules on that specific laptop at the kernel level.
Instantly.
It severs the device's ability to communicate with the firm's servers, the internet, and other endpoints, while basically keeping a single secure telemetry channel open for the security team to investigate.
Yes, it isolates the infection.
It sacrifices the compromised laptop to save the firm's entire network.
It ruthlessly contains the blast radius. That automated isolation is the difference between replacing one associate's corrupted hard drive and the firm appearing on the front page of the Wall Street Journal for a catastrophic data breach.
But wait, if EDR is autonomously severing network connections based on file volume and encryption heuristics, How does it handle a legitimate, high-stress legal workflow?
Ah, the false positive problem.
Yeah. Think about an associate working on a massive M&A deal or prepping for a huge trial. At 3:00 a.m., they initiate a massive e-discovery data dump, zipping and moving gigabytes of highly encrypted confidential PDFs across the network.
A very standard Tuesday night for some associates.
Right. So if this behavioral monitoring is as hypersensitive as Odendahl suggests, isn't it going to see that massive data movement, assume it is ransomware, lock the associate out of the network, and completely freeze the litigation team the night before trial?
That is the inherent paradox of automated security, and Odendahl addresses it directly when discussing the human element of these deployments. You just cannot deploy an enterprise-grade EDR system in a vacuum.
Why not?
Because the heuristics that define a threat in a manufacturing company are completely different from the daily, highly anomalous workflows of a law firm.
Right. Lawyers do weird things with data.
Exactly. This is why the source material insists that firms must partner with a managed security service provider, or an MSSP. Odendahl refers to them as the firm's security pilot.
Okay, so the software is an engine, but the MSSP provides the telemetry analysts who actually understand what the engine is doing.
Exactly. Without an MSSP, a firm will inevitably suffer from alert fatigue.
Alert fatigue.
Yeah, if an automated system generates thousands of false positives, like constantly flagging our hypothetical associate pulling an all-nighter, the internal IT team just becomes desensitized.
They start ignoring the alarms.
Right, they start ignoring the dashboard, or worse, they begin manually downgrading the security policies just to stop the alerts from going off.
Which defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly. That is almost always when the actual breach occurs. The MSSP prevents this by actively tuning the behavioral algorithms.
So what does this all mean? It means buying Microsoft 365 Business Premium gives you a massive advantage, but it doesn't solve the problem on its own.
Not at all.
You can buy the most sophisticated Formula One car on the market, right? But you cannot just hand the keys to a managing partner, point them at the track, and expect them to win the race.
They'll crash immediately.
Right, you need a professional pit crew. The MSSP is your pit crew. They are the ones writing custom detection rules that understand the firm's specific practice management systems, whether that is iManage, Clio, or NetDocuments.
Yes, they customize the rules of engagement.
They ensure the EDR knows the difference between an associate encrypting a ZIP file for a client at 3:00 a.m. and a threat actor deploying ransomware.
That contextual tuning is what allows the firm to maintain high-velocity operations without compromising the air gap. The MSSP acts as the translation layer between raw cryptographic security and practical legal workflows.
They filter out the noise.
They monitor the telemetry 24/7, filtering out that operational noise so that when a genuine threat anomaly occurs, the response is immediate, precise, and completely devastating to the attacker.
It is the ultimate balancing act. Maximum security with minimum friction. Well, let's synthesize the core thesis of Odendahl's article for you, the listener. The era of treating cybersecurity as an annoying IT overhead cost is completely dead.
It's over?
In 2026, the digital perimeter is the front line of your ethical obligations. The ABA mandates are clear. Failing to protect client data from sophisticated threats is a direct breach of professional responsibility.
You can't protect privilege with outdated tech.
Exactly. You cannot protect a modern, high-stakes law firm with consumer-grade tools. By migrating to enterprise-grade architectures like Microsoft Defender, enabling advanced telemetry like SafeLinks and EDR, and partnering with an expert MSSP like MoreMax.net to tune the deployment to your specific workflows, you are fundamentally altering your firm's risk profile.
You take control.
You transition from basically hoping you don't get breached to possessing documented empirical proof that your digital vault is actively defending itself.
This raises an important question. We have analyzed how Defender utilizes behavioral heuristics to neutralize the current wave of AI-driven phishing attacks and zero-day URLs. But if we project the evolution of generative AI just slightly forward, we really have to consider the implications of deep behavioral mimicry.
Behavioral mimicry.
Yeah. What happens when an attacker compromises the external email account of a vendor your firm communicates with daily, and then the malicious AI spends weeks quietly analyzing the specific, nuanced communication habits, the vocabulary, the syntax, and the unique idiosyncrasies of your firm's senior partner.
Oh, wow. So the threat model shifts from spooking a generic invoice to perfectly impersonating the actual human being.
Exactly. When the phishing email demanding an urgent wire transfer doesn't just feature the correct firm logo, but actually utilizes the exact phrasing, the specific typos, and the historical context of a conversation you had with that partner yesterday, how does any software filter differentiate that from legitimate traffic?
That is terrifying.
And more importantly, how will the ABA and the courts define reasonable efforts when the digital deception is utterly indistinguishable from reality?
That is a staggering implication to consider. And it really highlights why the baseline for technical competence is only going to accelerate from here.
It never stops.
The technology is phenomenal, but the attackers are just relentless. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Odendahl article.
It was a great discussion.
Whether you are actively overhauling your firm's infrastructure or just trying to understand the invisible war happening in your inbox every morning, we hope this exploration provided clarity and actionable insight. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and we will see you on the next deep dive.